everybody, what's going on, and welcome to GNR Central. And if you guys haven't been following the news lately, there was an interview with former Nine Inch Nails drummer and former Guns N' Roses drummer Chris Verena. So he was interviewed, and if you guys don't know, he played with Guns N' Roses in late '97 after Matt Sorum was fired in April of that year. And he talked about discussing with Axl why he kept the Guns N' Roses name. And it kind of got me thinking, there's been some other interviews Axl's done where he talked about why he kept the Guns N' Roses name after basically he was the only original member left. So he said that one time he was hanging with Axl and he said, you know, you're changing the sound of the band and it's really just you and we're all new dudes and we all come from cool places. But have you ever thought of just saying F Guns N' Roses, the name is dead and the band is over. We are now called blank. So he said that Axl basically told him, yeah, you're not the first person who told me I should probably do that. He said the Guns N' Roses name is an international brand, and to start over when I can just use the brand name that everybody knows, I can't sacrifice the branding that's already been established. I went on to say, and I got his argument for not changing the name, but I firmly also believed in what I was saying. If Axl came out and said, look man, everybody's quit the band. If I call this Guns N' Roses, you guys are going to laugh at me, which a lot of people did because it's not what we know as Guns N' Roses, so I'll call it something new. You're Axl Rose, it will be big and people will know that new logo and the new name and the new whatever. Let's go back to 2008 where Axl came out and he basically gave his version of events in terms of why he kept the name. And it really revolved around the time that Chinese Democracy came out. It was about a month after it came out. I remember he went on all these different forums and took fan questions, and he even penned his own open letters, which were quite long and revealed a lot about what his version of the events were over the past 14 years. So Rolling Stone did a pretty good piece where they basically summarized what he said in his actual open letter to fans. So the title of the headline says, did Axl Rose swindle Guns N' Roses and steal Slash's song? So if you guys have read Slash's book or Duff's book, then you would know that they have their own version of signing away the rights to the name Guns N' Roses. Slash basically insinuated that before one of the Guns N' Roses shows, basically Axl said he wouldn't go on stage unless the band decided to sign over the rights to the name, and they were worried about a riot breaking out. And I don't know if I really believe that story because you can't really force somebody to sign a legal document under duress, especially if you're blackmailing them or threatening them. And then Duff's book had a different take of it. They were towards the late end of like the Use Your Illusion tour. They were in Barcelona and they were about to go on stage, and then Duff claimed their manager at the time, Doug Goldstein, came to them and said, hey, you know, Axl may not go on if you don't sign the documents. And they basically just signed it. And that was it. Now, we've interviewed Doug Goldstein, and he said that that never happened because he wasn't on tour with the band at that time because one of his kids was born that day. So Axl came out and talked about how things really went down and said that there was none of this, you know, I'm not going to go on stage if you guys don't sign it over. So Axl's take was that it never happened, all made up, fallacy and fantasy, not one single solitary thread of truth to it. Had that been the case, I would have been cremated years ago legally and could have been cleaned me out for the name and damages. It's called duress with extenuating circumstances. So according to Rolling Stone, they believed Axl's take, which I do too. They said Axl makes a surprisingly strong case. Might Slash not have been the clearest head during the tour? So Axl talked a bit about how he ended up getting the name from the other members. So he said, when Guns renegotiated our contract with Geffen, I had the bit about the name added in as protection for myself, as I'd come up with the name and then originally started the band with it. So I think this happened around the early 90s, because I know when we interviewed Doug Goldstein, he talked about renegotiating Geffen's contract when he was manager. He said it had more to do with management than the band, as our then manager was always trying to convince someone that they should fire me, and he was probably referring to Alan Niven at that time, who was the manager before Doug Goldstein from 87 to 91. He said, as I had stopped speaking with him, he sensed his days were numbered and was bending anyone's ear he could with the attempting to sell her in renegotiation out for a personal payday from Geffen. He said it was added to the contract and everyone had to sign off on it. It wasn't hidden in fine print, etc., as you had to initial the section verifying that you acknowledged it. Now at the time, I didn't know or think about the brand names or corporate value, etc. All I knew was that I came up with the name, and from day one, everyone agreed to it being mine should we break up, and now it was in writing. I still didn't grasp any of the other issues until after I'd left and formed a new partnership, which was only an effort to salvage Guns and not steal it. So then he went to one of his classic Axl Rose explanations that, you know, back in the day really didn't make a lot of sense. So he said, in my opinion, the reality of the shift and public embarrassment and ridicule by others, which included a lot of not on so level business types he associated with at the time, for not contesting the rights to the brand name were way more than Slash could openly face. Also, we weren't lawyers or formally business educated, so it was just a matter of us all being naive and doing what we thought was right at the time. He said Slash was, in my opinion, being on the up and up and agreeing that I had the rights and wasn't trying to be some snake in the grass trying to pull a fast one. The others could have cared less. He basically said, but when the years went by after they left the band, the reality of the breakup hit and the strategy to have me crawl back was put into place. Slash had to save face and get business team and public support. So he said that painting me as the one who held the crowd hostage and forcing others to sign over the name worked out pretty well in that regard. I'm the bad guy and Duff McKagan, the fans, and most importantly himself, referring to Slash, were the victims. Oh, and they never actually made the sacrifice for the crowd, the people, or the fans at the show, but again, it never happened. So he basically said that even if all this was true, the statute of limitations for Slash to even do anything legal-wise had basically run out because so much time had passed since that agreement was signed. So he was also asked, why did you choose to keep the Guns name rather than create a new name? And he said, why keep the name? I'm literally the last man standing, and I'm not bragging or proud of it. It's been an effing nightmare, but I didn't leave Guns N' Roses, and I didn't drive the others out. With Slash, it's been nothing more than pure strategy and space while manipulating the public like it used to me. I earned the right to protect my efforts and to be able to take advantage of a contract I've worked hard for, where Slash's exact words that he didn't care. I get that some like a different version or lineup the same way that some like a specific team lineup or particular year of a specific car, but because you and I are getting played, I'm supposed to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So the next question Axl answered, and this is something I disagree with him on. He said, what do you think about people that say Chinese Democracy should have been a solo album instead of using the name Guns N' Roses? He said, I didn't make a solo record. A solo record would be completely different than this and probably be more instrumental. I made a Guns record with the right people who were the only people who really wanted to help me try, were qualified and capable of enduring this public abuse for years. The songs were chosen by everyone involved. I didn't want to do This I Love in any way, shape, or form, and Robin Fink and Karl Costanzo, who was the Guns N' Roses co-producer, insisted gaining Tommy and the other support. There's been a lot of pressure to go with using my name, all external, but that never felt right to me for the band, and the parameters in regards to the music has a lot more to do with the mindset of Guns than something else. The instrumental I wrote for The End of Days, that's more of a solo effort, at least presently. As far as the new name, this is who I am, not whatever else someone else thinks of. I don't see myself as solely Guns, but I do see myself as the only one from the past making the effort to take it forward, whether anyone approves or not, and not giving beyond what many would or fight for to do so. The name has helped the music more than you could ever know, and I'm not talking in regards to studios or budgets. I mean it as in being pushed by something and having to get the music to a place where I can find my peace regardless of what anyone says. And that wasn't fully achieved until the last round of mastering and swapping out a version of a track at the pressing plant that had gotten inadvertently changed at the last minute. Also, the name was what the industry wanted as well, and the burden of keeping it was something to endure in order to make the record. After the monies invested by old Geffen, that were decisions made that would have worked out for me, but I'm on the record as having opposed. Dropping the name became suicide. He also was asked about how do you feel when you read posts that say this isn't Guns N' Roses? Surely it isn't their place to say. Axl said David Bowie likes Pink Floyd with Barrett, many with Waters and those without, and then there are those who like all different types of lineups. In my opinion, what makes her situation a bit more unique, at least in how it's played out, is the ugliness of what really took place. If I'd done what was said then, I'd say F me too. So he also went on to say because certain people leave the band or leave the lineup, and even though he legally owns the rights to that name which the band started with, he shouldn't have to basically get rid of the name altogether, which I guess in a way I kind of agree with him on. He also went on a bit more to talk about the Guns N' Roses name. He said he was asked I would ask what the catalyst was to originally motivate you to seek the ownership of the name. Looking back, do you still feel it was a good course of action to have taken? Axl said, it wasn't so much that it was a good course or that. If looking back I could do something differently, it's that for better or worse, it was the only course. And had I not done this, Slash would have been successful in destroying me publicly, much more than he, others, or myself have so far, and I would have gone bankrupt. He was also asked, where would you be now had you not obtained the rights to the name Guns N' Roses? What would you have called the current lineup of GNR? He said, I don't know where I'd be, but there's clearly no happy ending there. And with everyone else that had gone on in every other area of my life, and the devastation isn't something I feel I would have to overcome, at least to any real degree publicly. However, I would have been able to pick myself up enough to get a job or sing somewhere else, but I doubt anything that's significant. He was also asked an interesting question: would you ever consider sharing the name with the current band members? To which he replied, the sharing thing is interesting, but even with all this time, the complications of the red tape and trying to get something outfall on my world to sort and not theirs, they are amazingly supportive and do their best to keep me in up spirits and focused, which I had less and less of in Guns way before Sweet Child caught on. If that were to change, then maybe something to look at. I hope for us to grow more together as we continue, who knows. If I hadn't secured the rights, I don't know where I'd be, and I'd probably call what would be then the current lineup of Guns N' Roses Those Mother Effers. The name is something I take great pride in, as I feel anyone who's been part of it should, the same as the other bands or teams. The burden which it is a nightmare, but not as much as or hopeless as I'd imagine without it could have been. And finally, one thing a lot of fans have thought is that Axl held on to the GNR name to sell more records, and he addressed that. So he said, as far as selling more records, it'd be nice to be in a position to possibly do that at some point, but that's never been my base reasoning. I would think it fits into not feeling I shouldn't be forced to throw away possible opportunities in a hostile attempt to take over. I believe I should fight for Guns in a patriotic sense or sense of loyalty or honor, not just my vision or direction for Guns, as those things can evolve and you can make forward moving positive compromises by what others bring to the table. But I mean more as in what principles I feel were important to Guns in regards to the overall commitment to the music. So that does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed that video, and be sure to subscribe. Also, let me know if you guys were on the fan forums back in 2008 when Axl was doing his open chats. I certainly remember it, and almost being blown away that like every night, night after night, Axl was on the forums answering questions and doing his open letters. So thanks for watching, guys. Hit subscribe and go check out GNRCentral.com for the latest and greatest Guns N' Roses news. Take care.
Hey, this is Dizzy Reed from Guns N' Roses, and you're watching GNR Central. Yeah!